Welcome to Do or Die. This video is kind of different from what I've done previously before, in the sense that it's going to be a two-part sort of series. The first part is going to be looking at runners from various backgrounds regarding their ability levels, the distances that they are running, and also the different stages that they are in preparation for their goal race. I'll also be speaking to a coach who has got certain philosophies with regards to training and racing. And I will also be speaking to this coach in part 2, where I'll be looking more with regards to accessories, watches, heart rate straps, and also matters of running footwear and apparel. So some of those runners as well will be revisited again in part 2, just to see where they're at this stage of the season.
Winning Essex Championships last year over 800 metres. I think it just highlighted to me that after taking 10 years out and getting back into the sport and not really knowing what I was capable of doing, I could actually reach quite a good level again, and it was a real pivotal moment for me that I thought there's more to come here, and I'm going to go and get it. Go 15 minutes progressive to start, zone 1, zone 2 into zone 3, then a few drills, a few strides, and then into the thick of it. Discipline, time, obviously working full time makes it very difficult. I think, I'm up at 5:30 in the morning and usually not home until 7 or 8 o'clock at night before I even start training, so that does make it tough. But you never know. I think for me, I'm just going to continue to grind day by day, week by week, year by year, and maybe when it comes to the Masters levels competitions, maybe there'll be something in there for me. So I've opted for the Nike Vaporflies today, actually. The first version, yeah. I don't tend to wear them too often on the track, but I don't know. I just fancied giving them a run out today. It's this nice still day, so I might be able to run some decent splits. Weaknesses, the two that come out for me are, one, I put an awful lot of pressure on myself, sometimes too much pressure on myself because I'm so keen to achieve. So sometimes that can probably have a detrimental effect. And as well as that, I think from a physiological perspective, because I've had 10 years out, aerobically I'm probably not as strong as I could be. So something that me and my coach have been really keen to do, especially this winter actually, is really drive the aerobic base and try and get myself into a position where I'm stronger there. In terms of strengths, my discipline to make sure that, one, I hit the stimulus in terms of the sessions that I'm set, whether that be making sure that it's easy enough or making sure that I'm hitting the right time targets. And as well, just my determination to succeed. There's no one's going to ever stop me. It's kind of my motto. The point of these sessions, although obviously I've got the fast twitch to, on the last few, maybe rip it up and move down to like 1500 metre pace.
Right.
That's not really the point. The point of it is to stay into VO2. So you've just got to be disciplined and think, are you in the right place in terms of your training zone? And if you are, then there's no need to push it.
You're no longer as competitive as you want to be. How do you progress or move on?
It's a really interesting question, because when I started running again after a 10-year break, I wasn't expecting to really become competitive again, and my competitive nature kicked in really, really quickly. So as much as I'd like to say, I'd probably continue to run leisurely, in fact, I could probably see myself more trying to aim for age group targets. Middle distance is kind of where my heart lies, so although moving up a distance is a possibility, I think I'm probably more likely to stick with 8 and 1500 and just compete at an age group level, hopefully. There's so many outstanding performers, you know, Kipchoge, Mo Farah, Seb Coe. I think the one for me that stands out is David Rudisha, who broke the 800 metre world record at London 2012, just because of the discipline that he showed in order to get to that level, and the way in which he ran that race as well, from gun to tape out in front. As an 800 metre runner, I know that's not easy to do, and to run a world record, absolutely annihilating that 141 barrier, I think, yeah, he tops it off.
When I was in my 20s, I was quite overweight. I was a size 18, and I sort of moved out of home, and I thought I need to do something about my eating. And I gradually, you know, swapped a bag of crisps for a bit of fruit and a bit of veg, and lost slowly. The pounds came off, and I ended up losing about 5 stone in total. And after that, funny enough, when I wasn't carrying all that weight, I felt like I had so much energy, and so I needed something to do, and I always liked walking, and I suddenly found myself sort of running towards the train station to catch the train, and I thought I quite like this movement, and that, so I said to a friend and my sister, I want to try a Couch to 5k.
What is it about your dad that inspired you?
His commitment to it, his friendship that he built from running as well. He still, after many years, has two core running friends that he used to run with that he will meet up with every year, like without fail. I think my first goal is to run across the Tower Bridge in the middle of the road and enjoy it and lap up the experience. I've been told that is the highlights of this run since I was a little girl, so I have to get to that point and run over that bridge, and that will be fantastic. The experience, first and foremost, because I've heard about this particular race since before I can remember. Probably before I was walking, I've heard this is the best race. So, and it's taken 7 years to get into London. So that will be my first win. The second, obviously, will be to run it well, run it consistently. I've selected a 4-hour time. If I get under that, I'll be ecstatic, because that would be a PB. But if I get close to it and I've had a fantastic day, I won't be disappointed. The community aspect is definitely something that has changed my life forever, I think. My dad was the one who convinced me to join a running club. He was like, you've made it through the winter, in the cold, where the running days aren't that great. Go join a club, and I joined the club, and I haven't looked back since. I've found my partner for it. I've found essentially friends for life, you know, sort of like it's a lovely community. What's lovely is to see, I still see some of my dad's generation at the races that I go to, and you see people throughout the ages, you know, sort of, and it's a lovely community. Long run on a Saturday. Monday is kind of my little tempo run. Wednesday is a session with other people doing interval sessions, which is lovely. And then a Thursday is a nice recovery run from that. so that's quite nice.
The first one that got me interested in running was a guy called Matt Fitzgerald. My wife bought me a book for my birthday called Brain Training for Runners to help basically get me into the right mindset. Spent a lot of time doing research and reading what he comes up with, and the general consensus is he looks at 80-20. So you spend 80% of your time running easy and 20% of your time running hard. He gave you some philosophies in there about what hard equals, but doesn't not really much around easy. In thing with the Inga Britsons at the moment is Stephen Sellers. He bases his philosophy on a 3 training model, and it's on your lactate turn point. So the first one is you're running easy, your lactate turn point, where you are all your lactate has been cleared. You then got a middle segment where your lactate is increasing, and a final segment where it's going through the roof. And the whole idea of him is training around those lactate turn points. So you're still doing your 80% easy at lactate turn point 1, being the aerobic threshold, and then you're doing a lot of training, especially around marathon pace, in your lactate 2. But one of the big things that all of the coaches that I've read, they've talked about training all the way through the cycle. So it doesn't matter if you're a marathon runner or a 10k runner or a mile runner or an 800 meter runner, you've got to be training each of those different points because they're all interlinked. His philosophy is all about specificity, which means whatever distance you're running, you have a particular block that you focus on that race pace, so you're getting your body keyed into it. If we think about all of the components of fitness, your body wants to train in a certain way. We're quite lazy at the end of the day. We've got so many creature comforts in the modern world that we've lost all the things we do with strength training, so we have to go out and do specific strength training to make up for these defects. Right. The whole point of that specific training is you get your body used to working at the pace, at the effort it needs to do, so therefore it makes it easier.
What would be your staples or your recommendations for training sessions, whether it be 5k, 10k or the marathon distance that you specialize in?
You've got to do appropriate warm-up for the training you're doing. Typically you want to do like a ramp, so you want to slowly increase the dynamic movements of your body, plus start getting the more blood flow into your muscles. So you can do that more dynamic actions and quickly. When it comes down to the actual session itself, I always tell everyone I like mixed paces. It's as simple as that. So you can have one session, plus you can try and train across that your spectrum of race paces. So for example, a classic of a 5k training could be, if you go away and read some of the books, it will say do 6k, so you do 1k times 6 at your 5k race effort. And sometimes that's going to be fine. At a club, to be honest, that's going to be pretty dull. So what we'd mix it up and say, right, what we'll do is we'll say let's do 6 times 800 meters, followed by at 5k pace, and then let's do 4 times 200 meters at, say, your mile pace. So you're working multiple different muscles in different ways, trying to, on that focus session at 5k pace, you're trying to train at that volume and a little bit quicker, trying to think when you're coming into that finishing straight of a race, you've got that little bit extra to push.
What is the significance of pacing and what is the potential consequence of getting it wrong and consequence of getting it right?
If you get your pacing wrong in a 5k, big deal, you've got maybe a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes to suffer. As you go up the distances, it makes a bigger problem. For example, in a marathon, if you're burning your more carbohydrates, so that's, think about what we talked about the training, passing the lactate turn point, you're working a lot harder, you're using a lot of energy, and your body craves carbohydrates, and it's nice and quick, it turns it through to that. So typically, most of us have got about 2 hours of carbohydrates in our body. The average runner does a marathon in 4 hours. So potentially you've got 2 hours where you can't burn carbohydrates and you burn fat. Now, the people who are slightly quicker, typically the 3 hour mark, people who are really pushing their own bit, or the 4 hours really pushing it, you generally get up to around about 20 miles.
Right.
Regardless of your time, 20 miles, and you will run out of energy. And they call it the bonk, where you just feel dreadful. Get your pacing wrong and you then run the last portion of the race in a world of pain. So the whole idea of getting pacing is use your training. You want to do everything you do on your training on race day. You don't want to do anything different. Now, most people, when they're doing a marathon, will only run up to 20 miles, so they never experience the bonk in training. So it's really about trying to focus on what you can do. And one of the good things, and we haven't talked about this so far, is about heart rate. Look at how high your heart rate is going.
Right.
So you can tell in a 5k race, you can measure heart rate, whether you've got a watch, maybe an Accurate or a chest strap. You can see at 5k, what is your top peak heart rate, which is typically right at the end, or look at the highest you've got.
Yeah.
In a marathon, you want to sort of say it's a percentage of that. You're looking between about, for most runners, it's going to be 80% of that value. So if you're finding in your long runs, you're hitting maybe 85, 90%, you're running them too quickly. Right. The whole point of pacing is you can run at the full length of the race and have that little bit more to sprint finish at the end.
Right.
That's where you want to be. And one thing that people talk about is doing negative splitting.
Yeah.
So start easily. It's especially the longer races, start easy. You can't bank time. The whole idea is get into your routine, run a little bit slower, and then hammer it more. When you get to halfway, start picking up, and as the distance drops off, get faster and faster and faster.
So why no marathon this year?
London was in October, and obviously London again would be in April, and I just feel like it was not enough time to chill and relax before I start marathon training again. It's very time consuming, so I thought I'd give myself a break. I want to try and do a sub 18 5k.
And what's your current PB?
18:19.
So how was that for you?
Windy, very windy.
And what time do you manage to do in the end, roughly?
18:35. So
That's good.
Pretty good, yeah.
Is there any particular reason why you prefer to train in this way as opposed to having a coach?
Yeah, so I know what works for me. So I know that only doing a Wednesday session and trying to get to Parkrun on Saturday, no other speed sessions, and then everything else is just easy or steady runs, that I know that works for me. So I won't want to push my body too much by having a coach telling me to do more sessions. And also my job is very demanding, like physically and mentally, so sometimes I just get in and I just want to plod for an hour. Run your easy runs easy. What you think is easy is probably not even easy enough. To have that aerobic range really will improve your running. I'm coming back from injury, so I was a bit unsure on how my ankle would cope, because I only decided to do Brentwood Half a couple of weeks ago. I've managed to do quite a few long runs now, get some speed sessions in, got some strength work in. Yeah, it's been good.
So what's actually your goal for Brentwood? Any numbers goals?
Well,
I know your PB is 125 something.
Yeah, so my PB is 125.15. My course PB for Brentwood is 125.45.
Yep.
So because I'm coming back from injury, I'd like to get as close to that time as possible. Then, if I can, to PB that.
I'm not in PB shape, but I think I'll be able to run somewhere between 2:58 and 3:10, around that kind of mark. I will start off at sub-3 pace and just sort of check where I'm at sort of every 4 or 5 miles and adjust the pace accordingly. Hopefully get quicker, but if I need to slow so I can still run a good time. Training has been very sort of messed up really for this marathon. It's been a 16-week block, but I've had several sort of minor injuries, and I've had a couple of colds, and I've had some sinus issues. So it has had quite an impact on the training. The volume and the intensity of the training is not that of what I would normally put in to run a marathon. So it's going to be really interesting to see what impact, hopefully none negative, that has on a marathon performance. But my weekly average for mileage is probably down about 15 miles a week over the course of the 16 weeks. So yeah, 10 weeks out I wasn't expecting to make the start line, so I had a good final 6 weeks, so I'm in quite good shape. Hopefully the legs will be nice and fresh, and I'll have a good run, but I'm just looking forward to taking part in it again.
This year started really well. Actually, I managed to get 2 PBs in the month of February. Training was really good. Looking forward to it, as my sort of goal was to finally break the 3-hour barrier in the marathon, and I was really confident. Training had been going really well for 16 weeks or so. Unfortunately, things didn't quite go to plan. In fact, the day before the race, I was actually volunteering at Parkrun and to do some photography, and it was a bit muddy. I tried to jump over a puddle. I slipped and I landed on my left knee. Up to 16-17 miles were great, so I was on schedule for sub-3. And then I started getting a dull, aching sort of pain in my left knee, the same pain I experienced the day before. And then the pain got worse, so I had to stop, and I had to start, and I had to stop, start and stop again. I did that for the best part of 8.5 to 9 miles, and I slowed drastically, and I finished in a time of 3 hours and 17 minutes, I believe, and some seconds. So in all, it was a bit frustrating because I'd really prepared for the race and I was in good shape as well. I've got a goal of a marathon just 3 days after my 50th birthday, which is the Battersea Park Marathon in London. So there I will attempt to do sub-3 again. However, knowing me, if I'm training and all is going well and I feel some sort of fitness around the corner and so forth, I'll probably just jump into a race, whether it be a half marathon and a marathon, and just have a go sort of thing. Sometimes I just tend to race well when I'm in good shape, as opposed to be looking for a goal well in the distance.
So it's been 8 weeks since the winter training ended and summer training started, some more 800, 1500 specific stuff. It was a shock to the system to begin with, for sure. You kind of come off the back of a good track season and almost expect to be able to run the same kind of splits you were doing by the end of that season as you come into a new one, and that definitely wasn't the case. So it took a good few weeks to get used to it, but gradually improved. Moved to 3 sessions a week, which were all race pace specific. And then also introduced some additional gym work, plyometrics and strength and core. I had 1 race so far this season, which was 2 weeks ago, and that was a BMC 800 metre race.
Really competitive field, and managed to get round in 1:59.2, which is the quickest season opener I've ever had. So I'm really, really pleased with that, and the conditions were pretty awful as well. So yeah, very, very encouraging start to the season. I've got another race coming up this Sunday, which is another 800 at the BFTTA Open. So hoping to run well again there. And then it's the Essex County Championships the weekend after. So doubling up, doing the 800 on the Saturday and the 1500 on the Sunday. So fingers crossed for those ones. From there, it's on to the National Athletics League and Southern Athletics League with Chelmsford. So looking forward to getting stuck in there and hopefully rewrite some PBs this year.
I started off reasonably well on pace, however I did struggle to keep that pace as I came across other runners that were running at a slower pace. So it was quite difficult to get round them and navigate round them. I got to about mile 12 and then I started to feel my quad hurt and then my hamstring. So I ended up having to walk quite a large chunk of the second half. This wasn't too bad because I was met with lots of friends en route, which was really lovely, really supportive. And yeah, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank the lovely club members that came out and waved, and the friends and that, because that was just a lovely thing to do, to stand out there for that amount of time. I will remember that for forever, because there really isn't a view like that of the Tower Bridge going down the middle of the road. It was definitely one where I sort of took a minute in the race just to enjoy, which was good. Somehow I managed to get to the last mile of the marathon, and a friend of mine found me amongst the, I think, 47,000 runners that were running, and said hello, and we kind of saw the finish line home together, which was lovely. We sort of had a hug at the end of it to sort of congratulate ourselves for finishing the race, which was great. I then got my marathon medal, which was great, and was met by lots of people that I knew at the goodie bag section, who were working very hard with all the runners to make sure everyone got their marathon t-shirt, which was lovely. So yeah, a memorable experience. Perhaps not the run that I wanted, but certainly one that I will remember forever.
Race started off well, running at around 3 hour marathon pace. HR was in the right zone. Then the dreaded tightening of the hamstring coming up to about 4 miles. Wasn't surprised really. I've had hamstring issues for a little while. Did the classic, let's see if we can run it off. That didn't really happen, and by about 8 miles it was obvious that I wasn't going to be able to sustain that pace. For 26 miles it was getting quite uncomfortable in that hamstring area, so just decided to shorten my stride, lower the pace, found a sort of stride and pace that felt reasonably comfortable, and just carried on with that really. Soaked up the atmosphere, just enjoyed running round. Got to about mile 20 and I realised that I was still sort of running at a pace that would get me the good for age qualifying standard for my age category. So just pushed a little bit harder in that final 10k just to try and get around the 3:15 mark, and I was 3:15 and 11 seconds.
Hey, this is an update of the last couple of... hell. Three weeks before, I got struck with the flu and it floored me. I spent 5 to 6 days in bed, just couldn't move, and then I spent the next 2 weeks just not being able to recover, constant fatigue, tiredness, feeling sick, constant headache, loss of appetite for food. 2 weeks after that, it was a Lee Valley half, very quiet race, spent most of that running by itself and by myself, and in the pouring rain as well. But I came away with 1:26.29, which again I was super chuffed with, because I'd taken 3 minutes off my time in 2 weeks. So my fitness was coming back. I spent most of April getting my fitness back, getting stronger, getting to the gym, getting some more power in me, going on my bike. I booked a 10k race, and I did better than expected, 37:52, which I was so happy with. And then I did a 5k park run a week after that, and I was 2 seconds away from my PB.
So thank you to Luke, to Matt, to Stephanie, to Tanya, and to Alex for sharing their journey regards to their goals and the races that they've had already this year. And the takeaway from this is that sometimes we can prepare, or we try to be as best prepared as we can be for a particular goal race, but sometimes things don't go to plan, whether it's illness, injury, or just something that happens during the race which throws us off completely.